Hey guys, Ashley here. If you're new to my channel, I am mama of that hippie family, and it has almost been 1 year since I gave birth at home in our tiny house on wheels. So since it's coming up to a year of my son's birth, oh my god, hard to believe. It's also kind of bringing back all those memories of being pregnant this time last year. In today's video, what made me decide to have a home birth? I should mention, first of all, this video is my personal experience, my personal opinion, and what I believe. So it's not what's right for everybody. There are a lot of circumstances or situations where a hospital is the better choice for you. So keep that in mind. I am actually working on a bit of a little craft project right now, which my son is obviously sleeping so that I can do this. I'm Mod Podging a soap container that I have that I'm tired of looking at this ugly plastic thing. Oh, there's a spider. Oh. So I'm covering it with flowers and leaves to make it pretty again. So while I talk to you guys, I'm gonna just work on my little project here. If you haven't watched my home birth video, maybe before you watch this one, I'll link it right here. Go watch me giving birth at home. First thing I want to say about what led me to have a home birth is in Canada, when you get pregnant, first thing you decide is, will I have a midwife or will I go to my OB/GYN or get an OB/GYN? And I chose to have a midwife. The difference between a midwife and an OB/GYN is an OB/GYN is directly just like what you would do, or the person you would talk to when you're going to the hospital to have your delivery. I chose a midwife because not only can a midwife assist in your home birth, but she will also go to the hospital with you. And now a midwife is also an extremely, in my personal opinion, a great benefit, because they want to provide you with as much information as possible so that you can decide what is best for you and your situation. An OB/GYN is more of like medical facts. This is how it is. This is how it's gonna go. So a midwife educates you and helps you decide what you want to do and what is best in your situation. They are still medical professionals and can deliver your baby. In order to have a home birth, it's best to not have any complications in your pregnancy. They would suggest to probably have a hospital birth if you do. And there can be many complications, so it is different for every person and everybody's different situations. But my pregnancy was very, like, I think the exact words of my midwife were, it was average. I'm the most average person you could ever imagine, so I was a perfect candidate for a home birth. Originally, what made me want to have a home birth, because I didn't grow up always like thinking like, oh, when I grow up I'm gonna have a home birth, or like, I thought maybe one day, get out of here. I thought like maybe one day, like if I had multiple children, that would be something I'd be interested in. I didn't expect to have a home birth with my first child, but because of the situation in the world and like the pandemic and everything, personally I felt a lot more comfortable at home than in the hospital. I know that in the hospital they have rules that you have to abide by, and I struggle with that, always have. So I wanted to be more in control of my situation. I've always been really, really, really interested in birth. I think that it's a magical, beautiful experience. When I was 17 years old, I was there when my best friend gave birth. I already knew like what was birth like. It wasn't like I had never experienced it before, never experienced it personally, but I knew what it was going to be like. I have also had animals that have given birth and stuff, so it's a pretty magical time. I know that hospital births tend to also lead to more interventions, and I really, it was important to me that if possible, I wanted to have a natural birth. So I didn't want to put myself in a situation where, like in the hospital, sometimes you get pressured to either take medications or be induced, or a lot of the time even have a C-section. C-sections are becoming more and more popular. They are a life-saving procedure, and there is definitely a place for them, but sometimes a C-section is just so routine in the hospital that they're quick to recommend it when it's not always what's needed to be done in every situation. Like I said, there are a lot of situations where it's a life-saving practice that needs to happen, but sometimes they're just like, you know what, it'd be a lot quicker if we just had a little C-section right now, no big deal, you'll be fine. Some people even choose to have a C-section, so it's personal preference a lot of the time too. I am terrified of that. That sounds terrifying to me. So I didn't want to have a C-section. I wanted to do everything in my power to avoid having a C-section, which led me to believe that a home birth might be a good option. And after talking to my midwives and figuring out that my pregnancy was not high risk, everything was very, very normal, we knew that I was going to attempt to go down the road for home delivery. Another part of my pregnancy, or like my decision for a home birth, was to not have any checks. I only had the dating ultrasound where they date how pregnant you are, and then the measurement one at like halfway point. I only had my stomach measured when I went to the midwives. I never had any vaginal checks or medications or anything like that. And when I was in labor too, I didn't want to be checked vaginally because that can lead to other complications as well, especially if you're having a home birth. You just don't want to complicate the situation, right? One thing that is that you would have to mentally prepare yourself for if you wanted to have a home birth is that you don't have the option of an epidural. So I'm actually going to be making another video this month on how I prepped mentally, physically for having an unmedicated home birth. So make sure you subscribe so that you're here for that video. If you are pregnant right now and thinking about having an unmedicated birth, I'll give you some good tips. I think for me, the funny thing, I had someone say to me when I said, I think I'm gonna have a home birth, she said, hospital births are so normal, why wouldn't you have a hospital birth? And I remember she was like an older lady too, and I said to her, were you born in a hospital? And she said, no, actually I was born at home. And I said, I kind of laughed because hospital births are new. They have been around for less than 100 years. Women have been giving birth at home with midwives for thousands of years. Home births are normal. Hospital births are new. So anyone who says that they just feel more comfortable at a hospital, like, that's understandable. I just felt more comfortable at home. It's quite interesting actually. A lot of more developed countries tend to have more hospital births. In the United States, the average home birth is 2.5%, and in Canada I think it's like 1.3%, which I actually didn't know that statistic before. I can't believe I'm a 1.3% in Canada. That seems a little bit crazy to me. I thought that number would be higher, but in the Netherlands it's 20%, and then in less developed countries obviously it's even higher. So hospital births don't necessarily mean normal. As a person who is really interested in labor and delivery, I also knew that I would have more time with my placenta giving birth at home. I knew that my midwife would take the time to let me naturally deliver the placenta when my body was ready. Sometimes they give you a drug, I can't remember what it's called right now, to help your body push the placenta out faster for some reason. I'm not quite sure why, but there's probably a medical reason why. The nice thing about that was after I delivered my placenta, my midwife took my placenta and laid it out and gave my husband and I actually a tour of the placenta. I'm going to make a whole entire video this month all about the placenta too. So I'll talk more about that later. But I do want to mention, this is some shady business here. Did you ever wonder like what hospitals do with the placenta? Because that's an organ that you grew, and I doubt they're just throwing it away. Watch my placenta video. We'll talk more about that there. I will say it was very comfortable to be at home. As soon as I was in labor, I didn't have to worry about rushing to a hospital, packing my bag. I did have a bag packed in case of emergency, in case I did have to go to a hospital. But it was just so relaxed and so calm. I went into labor, my husband went to work, he came home halfway through work, and I was laboring in my bathroom, in my bathtub, and then on my couch. And then after I gave birth in the bathtub, I went back and laid on the couch all night with my baby and my husband, and it was so relaxing and beautiful, and I felt really in control. If you know me, I'm a control freak, so that was excellent. Big factor in my decision making. I can't compare myself to the hospital because I've never given birth at a hospital, minus my friends and the one birth that I attended, I attended in the hospital. That's my only knowledge towards a hospital birth. I feel like it's very like rushy there, and it's kind of hectic. When I was at a hospital birth, I felt like they were using a lot of terminology I didn't understand when they were like talking to each other. There's all these machines and the beeping and the lights, and it's just very intense. At a hospital, you have staff and the nurses switch over and random doctors and stuff, right? So when you're giving birth at home, it's just you and your midwife. And that midwife is with you from beginning to end, that one person. It was just myself, my husband, and my one midwife until I started pushing, and then a second midwife came because there's one midwife for me and one midwife for the baby. But the second midwife doesn't need to come until the baby's gonna be there anyways, so that's kind of nice too. Especially since we live in a tiny house on wheels. It's a small space. It's amazing though that it was enough space. I live in a tiny house on wheels, 260 square feet, but it wasn't too small. Amazing. An interesting fact, people who tend to give birth at home also have higher rates of exclusively breastfeeding because you tend to also have longer skin-to-skin time with your baby. At the hospital, I don't know if you can like request them not to take your baby. I wouldn't want that. Up until a few months ago when my mom babysat Floyd, we had never been separated, ever. I had never been away from him. I think he was like 7 or 8 months old the first time I had ever been like separated from him. I couldn't imagine being in a hospital and they like take your baby to do even like the measurements and everything. Like they weighed him and measured him. They did it on my couch in their little scale thing, so that was really cool too. Yeah, so when you have that extra skin-to-skin time, contact time, it is more relaxing, I would imagine, and so you can ease into breastfeeding a little bit more. I think the environment has a lot to do. Like when you're in a calm and relaxed state of mind and environment, then your baby can sense that and feel that too, and it might help with the whole healing process, the latching process, breastfeeding, everything. I have never been to a hospital with my son in a year, knock on wood, but even after giving birth at home, the midwife comes to my house and does all the checks for the first 2 weeks, I think it was. So I never had to go to a hospital one time at all. She came to us, and that is amazing. Having the midwife come back, you create this like bond too with your midwife. I could not recommend a home birth enough. Such a magical spiritual experience. Giving life. Unreal. And then it's all over. And then you just have this mad child that is just running and screaming and crying. But it's great too. It's the best actually. I love being a mom. Every birth story is a wonderful birth story, and I love birth stories. So drop a comment in the comment section below and tell me your birth story. I would absolutely love to hear it, whether it's at home or in the hospital. I hope you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to my channel because this month it's all about labor, birth, newborns, all the good stuff. Thanks for watching. As always, I hope that you have a great rest of your day. I will have a great rest of my day, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, do you want to see what I did so far? I'm going to cover the whole bottle in flower petals and leaves. This is what it looks like when it's done.